This July, Family Fest Barbados invites you to be part of something powerful. It is our month of activities in July 2026 under the theme, The Purpose of Family. Across 4 dynamic weeks, we will focus on the heart of our nation, men, women, children, and the family.
Join us for 12 live online discussions, exploring real issues, real stories, and real solutions for stronger families and a stronger Barbados. Men's Week runs July 5th to 9th.
Women's Week runs July 12th to 16th. Children's Week runs July 19th to 23rd. And Family Week runs July 26th to 30th. Stream with us live on Sundays at 5:30 p.m. and Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Then, join us for our 7th anniversary fundraising gala, Saturday, September 5th, 2026 at 7 p.m. at the Hilton Barbados Resort.
Enjoy a 3-course meal, entertainment, door prizes, and more. Tickets are $250 per person. Your support helps us to save families. Family Fest Barbados. Help, hope, healing, happiness.
For tickets and information, call 428-9611, 420-5717, or 832-5241. Saving families through education.
We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong, looking out for hurting children all around, and helping the parents carry on. Standing united, we'll overcome. We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness.
Yes, good evening and welcome to Family Fest 2026 month of activities. I am Angelina Cotton, your moderator for this evening. And this is Family Week, where we will certainly be focused on the family. Over the last 3 weeks or so, we've had some critical and insightful discussions on men, women, and children. If you're now joining us for the first time, do look on the Family Fest YouTube and Facebook pages to catch up with the timely discussions. So, tonight we begin our conversation on family by honing in on the topic of why society rises and falls on the family. We look at how the family, as a foundational social structure or institution, play a role in shaping human development and society's future by examining how functional supportive family systems influence emotional well-being, social behavior, and long-term life outcomes across generations. And we will try to pump up the discussion with some comparative research and so forth. And to help with this discourse and weighty topic, we have a suitable panel that I will now invite to give us a short profile of themselves. We have Adrienne and we have Romaine, and we will see Chanel, but she'll be off camera. So I just want to welcome you all, and we'll begin with Adrienne. You can tell us about yourself, and
Very,
by Romaine.
very pleasant evening to you. I'm what, father, uh, a husband of quite a number of years, and I've been involved initially in well, government for about 10 years, then media for maybe 14, and subsequently got involved in the managing of Christian retail and also producing the annual Barbados Gospel Fest. So those are some of the things I've been involved in over the years, apart from raising three daughters and having a lovely wife. That's Adrian Agard.
Wonderful. Over to you, Romaine.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Angelina. Good evening to everyone. First off, I will say that my profile might not be as extensive as Mr. Agard's, but I can say I am also a father and a young father at that. I have two young ones. They call them the apple of your eye, but they're 6 years old. The boy, and the girl is now 8 months. So very new to this, but I'm learning as I go, and I believe that God has enabled me to make some very healthy strides thus far, and I'm extremely grateful for that. Indeed, it is my honor to sit here on this panel today. My background is in business and marketing, and I've been doing that for well in excess of, let's say, 12 years now. And I look forward to a healthy and happy discussion surrounding family.
Lovely. Thank you. Is Chanel there? She's able to come on?
Yes, I'm here, Angelina. Good
Yes.
evening to everyone. Apologies for not being able to see my face this evening, but I count it a privilege to be here once again to share and to, give thoughts as it relates to the subject matter. As many persons may be aware, I'm a social worker with probably over 10 or 11 years experience. I'm married to one husband, happily so. Although I'm not a parent, I work in child protection, and I work with numerous different types of families and stuff in Barbados, which would give me a unique perspective of the dynamics of what we are seeing in the country, and also what we can also do to, as a church and as a body, what we can do probably to make those small changes to impact and try to bring some sort of healing, help, resource to those families that we're seeing that are broken and what's not. So I sit in a very unique position, as I said, but I come to share and to see what we can do to put our heads together to see if we can make Barbados and the people and the families that we work with be better.
Yes, thank you. And we're glad that you're able to make it with us this evening. And thank you to Adrienne as well as Romaine. So to start our conversation on why society rises and falls on the family, this seems to be a very weighty responsibility for this single institution. So before we dive into the meaty parts of the discussion, I would like for someone to just give a brief summary or a snapshot of why is the family considered such an important institution, or what we say, bedrock to society. Anyone can go.
All right. So I I think the family in itself um is the first school of love and responsibility, and is that moral formation and foundation that any person needs. Now, when we look at the role of the family, it holds an extreme cultural role, and then in that it so also holds a moral role. And by my belief, it holds a biblical role as well. And we must establish what each role is and how it plays into the benefits and disadvantages of a child's life. Because essentially, we are all responsible for the society that we live in. And people see family often as those within your household. I actually believe that that extends well beyond your household. I believe that you can have family that is even more dear to you than the ones that are blood related, and who shape who you become in the future, the type of man or woman that we grow up to be. So in order for us to truly establish um, the role of a family, I'd say we first have to understand the purpose and how it is built as a school of love, as a school of responsibility, and that moral foundation that is meant to truly guide and train up a child in the way that it should grow. I know in times gone by, we used to hear our older ones saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And in these days, I wonder about the village when I see some of the children. But I think it is our responsibility as a whole to ensure, not just limited to the household, but to ensure that we foster an environment that cultivates growth. And when I say growth, I mean growth in a spiritual sense, growth in a moral sense, and holistically growth.
Yes, I want to add to that. If you don't mind me jumping in. I just want to say that the family is like the fundamental building block of society. Each of us come out of a family, right? Mother, father, single parent. I don't want to jump ahead of the discussion, but the thing is that is like what Romain was saying is like the first school for children for us growing up. What do we learn? We learn things like how like emotional support. Our parents are supposed to teach us like moral values, the core moral values that we're supposed to carry and live with, teaching us social skills, creating like a stable and caring environment so that we can become productive citizens. So the thing is that the family is supposed to be like an incubator where you learn all of these things. So when you go out of it, you understand you can positively impact the society in which you reside. All right. So the importance of the family society. If we get if the family is wrong, if the family is distorted, if there's breakdown in the family structure, you're gonna see it manifest itself in society.
Right. Thank you for setting
Um,
that foundation. You were going to say something, Adrian.
yeah, I noted something that Romain said, which was something I was pondering on quite a bit as I prepared for this, because very often we look at the family in the context of my family. I hope that this evening, as we investigate the topic, we will see the role that the society, the other families around us, how important it is for us to have some sort of connection with people um, who are in our community, and families, individuals who are part of families within our communities. I think too often we have seen this as a my thing, my family. In actual fact, a lot of things that happen outside of our family, within our own community, can have a tremendous impact on our own family. And so I think the time has come for us to have a wider, open the lens a bit more, and to see our responsibilities not just being for our those in our household, but having care. And that's what I believe Romain was alluding to. And that goes back to that whole idea about the village. I think that we've lost that. So the care for those near us, those around us, impacts, and we see it happening across our communities. I've had a long time of being raised in a community, and living in that community as an adult, and observing the challenges that people face. And as we've developed, how the distancing has impacted the community, and impacted families. So I want us to open the lens a bit, and not just when we talk of family, be just focused on our family, but to see the impact that it has, that family life has, and how we relate to our neighbors and so forth, how it can have an impact on what type of community we live in.
Wow, that's a very valuable point that you made there. And as Romain says, so I'm hearing it, it's not just about your immediate family, but it extends to the families in your community as well. All right.
Yes.
So let's dive a little deeper and talk about those core functions. And what are the core functions as the family serve in the human development and society?
Well, I can say for certain that it is my belief that the responsibility of the family is to provide, well, two main things. I think it's to provide guidance, and I also think it is naturally to be a provider, a provision. So we talk about the basic necessities. I mean, we know them as food, clothes, shelter, transportation. But even beyond that, when we say, because I think that's the provision, but when we say guidance, I think it's the family's responsibility to train up a child in the way it should grow. We can't leave our children to, and this is a major gross of mine because I find that um, I find that they're parents who don't parent. They have the children, yes, but at the end of the day, they don't
Take
maintain the
responsibility for them.
responsibility exactly the responsibility in the way that they should. I'm trying to say this as I don't know diplomatic as possible, but they don't take responsibility in the way that they should. And essentially, we have to be cognizant of the fact that bringing a child into this world is a responsibility and it is a blessing. And it is your responsibility to cherish that blessing, to guide that blessing, to provide for that blessing. And it is expected of you as a parent because that is what you signed up for as a parent. So I think when we talk about family, and in the way that we spoke about it before, understanding that family is not limited to my bloodline, but it also is extended to a community. I would like to extend that even further because when we say community, we might think of the environs of the village, but I think that the church has a responsibility to parent children. I think that the basis or the foundation of the church, when we say brother Adrian or sister Chanel, it establishes a family connection within the church as a framework. And if it is that we are in the church as a family, then I think that it is the church's responsibility to also reparent some people, and be the family that they never had. I I believe that the role of family is not limited in the same manner to our bloodline, but is also by extension limited and is also by extension going to a spiritual sense as well.
Can I
Yeah.
put something on the table for discussion as well?
Yeah.
We talk about people that persons would sign up for being a parent, right? Um, I couldn't agree and disagree, Romeo, because
Hmm.
sometimes in situations, children come just by having sex. The body didn't sign up for it.
Hmm.
It was a one nighter. Um, they met somebody, whatever, and as a result, they got pregnant. They might have a way of thinking where they didn't want to do a termination or whatever, and they decided, you know what, I am going to be a parent. So they're out of debt because really and truly they signed up for a night of fun, but as a result of a night of fun, it resulted in them getting themselves pregnant, right? And then there's no real relationship between the mother and the father. And then obviously it causes issues and stuff like that. So I know we can dive deeper in that, but I want to
Hmm.
put that on the table that not all people who get children sign up to get them. It happens sometimes, as I said, as a result of. I mean, there are other persons who would plan and say, in 3 years after we finish school and whatever, we are going to go ahead and we can have a family. But not all children are born out of a scenario like that.
Understood.
Yes. Very perceptive, and thank you for that point. Um, and Adrian, do you have anything to add where the core functions of the family is concerned?
Yeah, tremendous responsibility, really. And there's no manual. There are different books and so forth, but because it's an amazing thing, it's a dynamic institution, and you're dealing with people with different personalities, children with different personalities. It is really important that people, one of the fundamental things I think people need to do is to connect with the, I believe a lot in this whole idea of purpose. For everything, there's a purpose, and the purpose of a thing is in the mind of the creator of that. the institution is indeed a God creation. And therefore, it's important that we connect with the one who created that, this whole concept of the family. Um, and when you connect with the purpose of a thing is in the mind of the creator. This is one of the principles taught by Dr. Miles Monroe that I really buy into a lot. You have to understand that God created this institution, and if you're going to be involved in the process of raising children and having children, you want to get that blueprint. You want to get it. You want to connect with him. And I think it's important that persons who are going to be involved in this process connect with God and have a relationship with God, connect with his word. And I think that helps us a lot in the process of building up what we ought to do. Unfortunately, that does not happen. And you know what the word says, there's a way that seems right to a man, but the end of it is the way of death. So we throw these principles out the window and we decide to go our own way, and we end up really in the kind of situations that we find ourselves in, where people don't have guidance on how they ought to approach this whole matter of a family. And um, another one of the principles where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable, or abuse is just abnormal use is inevitable. So that is what we experience on an ongoing basis, abnormal use, and therefore we see the kinds of outcomes that we've become familiar with.
Right. So we heard provision, we heard guidance, and you're speaking primarily about the spiritual responsibility. And if you think about it, the first family, as you rightly said, was created by God, Adam and Eve, and they were the first family. And so I can see why you're saying, we need to be connected. Families need to be connected. Anybody else? Any more functions before we move on to our next question?
I can jump in here to we talked about socialization as well. Did we mention that? I think we did. Where in the family, we teach children the manners and cultural norms. I think women would have talked about economic security, where there's provision, and then also I would like to add behavioral guidance, which shapes the character of a child too as well. Those are some of the other responsibilities or the roles that the family would also play as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we will talk now. Chanel, I want you to begin with this area. When we think about how has the purpose of the family evolved across cultures over time, and yeah, just give us a summary of how that has been since the beginning or the institution has been established.
Well, we would have seen a shifting where there would have been like a nuclear family, mommy, daddy, children, and what's not. And over time, you can see how there's been a shifting into single parent family. And we're seeing that a lot more. And also multi generational families too, as well. So that's one shift as well that we've been seeing. Um, the village that we have been discussing so far has been eradicated. That's something that we really need to get back into because right now, because of different family dynamics, person's character, person's um, thought patterns, their attitude, different things, their norms, lack of norms. There's a lot of dysfunction in families right now, so there's nobody willing to come together to pool their resources together like before. So, for instance, I will share an example to say on the ground, you will have a family living in a household and they got 3 fridges and 2 stoves. And when someone leaves the home, the gas bottle just get locked up in a room, right? So we're seeing the shifting, as I said, from nuclear shift from the mommy, daddy, children to single parent households. And then I want to also say that they're multi generational households where the grandparents now are the ones raising the children because the mothers and the fathers are no longer in the picture either by choice or because of some sort of issue that we can look at going further. So in summary, that's what the shift that we're seeing right now.
Okay, and with this shift, it, do you see it affecting society negatively, or it didn't have any impact, or depends on other factors? How do you
It,
see it?
it depends on other factors because I am a product of a single parent household. But I had a village, right? So that's why we keep on talking about the village. We had a village who was able to say, help me and speak to me and help curb behaviors and stuff like that. If I had grew up now in this time, I don't think that would have existed, and I probably would not even be here on this discussion right now. But I had a village, and I also had another community, which is church, who was able to help give me that extra spiritual push and that additional assistance and teaching and whatever. And they too became my extended family as well, right? So once again, village. Um, as I said, right now what we are seeing, and I'm letting you guys know what we are seeing, because sometimes we can be in a bit of a dome, like a ball. We don't think this is happening in Barbados, right? But for instance, you have the issues of, let's say, mental illness with some parents who can't raise their children, and the grandparents now have to raise the children. The children cannot understand at the point in time that their parent has a mental illness. So what do they feel? Rejection. They feel like everybody else has like a mommy, someone younger. Why my grandmom is raising me? So there are different dynamics. That's why I'm saying that although I grew up in a single parent household years ago, it may not be the same for someone who has grown up in this time because they didn't have a village, right? So we're seeing different social, we're seeing behavioral changes, we're seeing the shift even within education as well. We got to get this family structure right. We need to help those in all dynamics. So we got to help the single parents. We got to help the parents that are married, not married. Every family structure we need to put our hands on and encourage, because at the end of the day, the person who is going to hurt or get the hurt is going to be the children. And then if we're talking about productive citizens and what's not, if we don't do well as parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, we are not going to have the productive citizens that we are praying for and asking for, because we need to put in the work now. And right now, I'm saying to you right now on this platform right now is that the family has broken down, and we really need to put in some effort to make sure that we can help those persons out there to you know get that parenting skills, get whatever they need so that they can raise their children and raise their children correctly.
Right, because I was thinking, as you were saying, without the extension of the village and the community and so on, how do parents, begin to take back that responsibility? Because as we can see, we're not so community oriented at this point in time, and so families, it still falls back on that family, regardless of what type of family you have. Romaine, you would like to add to what Chanel said?
Well, I'm in agreement. I think that at the end of the day, as we're discussing, we establish family as the bedrock, um, the basis of a person's life, or it's almost like that conversation with nature versus nurture, and how things that they've experienced in their youth have impacted them in their older life or when they get older, and it's impacting you in ways that you don't even realize sometimes. We have situations whereby children um, do things not even aware that they're doing them because it's the example that they've seen all the years, and it's just almost like second nature. So, you know, children learn what you say, but they definitely learn what you do. And I learned that even in my life, where I see my son emulating things that I didn't even realize I was doing around him. So now I have to be extra cautious of what it is that I am actively doing or saying, even if it is not to him, when he is around, because they're like sponges and we are actually molding their personality and who they become in society on a daily basis. So we have a responsibility as the parent to ensure that our children grow up in the way that they should grow.
What? Yes. I want to ask, in terms of, as you talk about the children growing up, what does a stable family environment look like versus an unstable environment, and how you can see that affecting the society? Adrian, we could start with you.
Yeah, unstable environment. You described, you've gone through this evening, you touched on a number of situations that we've observed that lead to that instability where a father is absent. You made some comments earlier. I smiled. You talked about someone go getting themselves pregnant. There's a term you used, and I smiled because that doesn't happen. Somebody does it, and it's almost as though, but yeah, people, are loose with their living, and this happens where some person, a lady, ends up with a baby, and there's nobody there helping her to taking that responsibility. There's always two. There's no mystery to it,
Mhm.
and therefore we need to find a way to nurture responsible individuals and young men who will take responsibility for their actions and then take responsibility for their children. And that role, when that responsibility is taken, you recognize that there's so much that is to be done in terms of helping to mold that life. Identity, love, trust, respect, responsibility, certain teaching values. These things cannot be just pulled out of the ether. There are things that we have to be placed and communicated to children and reinforced. I'm in the experience now of dealing with my grandkids, and I'm
Mhm.
recognizing a responsibility that I have, me and my wife as grandparents, to assist their parents in helping to guide them. And these things are important coming from the parent, coming from the grandparents, from people around them. It's important that these things are taught and reinforced. You sometimes have to say one thing over and over again until they catch it. Now, if you have an environment where this is not happening, where there's nobody to do that, now hopefully there's someone in the neighborhood who can, by observation and interaction, and this is what I alluded to earlier, where people now take some interest in what is happening with the neighbor. How can I assist? How can I find out, get a little closer to understand what is happening? How can I help to give some guidance to a young individual? And the role cannot be, yes, we understand it's the central role of the parent, but where that parent is failing, hopefully in the community, hopefully in the neighborhood, there's someone who, as in the past would have happened, and one of our panelists alluded to, there's someone who can pick up that slack and who can help to nurture that young individual into becoming a responsible adult. So we have this situation where the parents, these children are become future parents. They're future leaders, and it's important that instilling of these concepts, ideas, values are done, whether it's done by the immediate parent or it's done by someone who takes that responsibility and shows an interest in the individual.
All right. And when you, I want somebody to give me an example. For instance, when you would look at a stable family, what are those, what we will say, makeup or the ingredients of a stable family? Who, or, well, if you have an example in mind or your own families, what are some things that you would practice as a stable family? Uh,
I I if I was to respond to that, I would say my idea of a stable family, I honestly, as much as finances does help for stability, it is not in my pinnacle or on the Mount Rushmore of what I would deem to be essential for a stable family. I think that a stable family is one that is God focused, God centered. I think if we were to give the ideal family, it would include both father and mother being God focused with their child and having an intimate relationship with God, first and foremost, that reflects positively in the way that the child views his parents or her parents to establish themselves in society. So when I think of a stable family, and if I had to picture the ideal stable family, it would have to be with both father and mother, a loving household where love is prevalent. It has to be an environment where the child is seen and heard, because I know we have a saying in local vernacular that children should be seen and not heard. But I I do think that children have a voice and they need to know when and where to express that voice, and they shouldn't be silenced continuously. So I think that that is essentially what I see when I think of the ideal, stable household. But I'll leave
Yeah.
it open for
So
any
Yeah.
you
other.
speak
Go ahead. Go ahead,
you speak to
Adrian.
what is really an ideal, but
Yeah,
in our own experience over time, we've
mm,
seen stable families. We've seen a single parent who is very responsible
definitely,
and who is doing all of the things that some of the
definitely.
things we've mentioned, and have been able to raise children, maybe not even just one child, many
Yeah.
children, and to keep them in a straight line, so to speak, keep
And in
them.
many of those situations, better than some of the ones that had two
Yeah,
parents in the household.
yes. So,
Yeah,
the different
yeah,
different presentations of what is stable, but what we want to talk where people take responsibility. Sometimes it's
mm,
one parent taking responsibility. It's
yeah,
better, we may think. I believe it when we have two parents because they're able to share the burden.
yeah,
But I know of many situations where individual parents have taken that responsibility, looked out very in very much detail for the care and of their child from a number of different angles, ensure that they were well provided for, and some people have done remarkably well in raising the children alone. And we want to also, as we discuss this, recognize that that also has happened and continues to happen.
yes, definitely.
Right. That was the point I was just going to point out, that many persons would say they may not have had a two-parent household, but they would have seen stability in their family environments because that parent chose to be intentional about
and,
how they
and
raise
responsible.
and responsible, and to bring values that will help them to be better in society. Chanel, you wanted to add to that as well?
The gentleman did very well, but I would just say that just a family that provides consistent emotional support. There's simple things, routines, clear communication, financial security. I agree with what Adrian would have said too about how it has evolved over time. So there are single parent households, extended multi-generational family, there are blended families and what's not. So my thing is that if the parent, offers these basic things, I believe that you can consider that a stable household.
And mind you, we're not talking about perfect families.
No, we're
We're
not.
not talking,
Mm,
No,
what children really need is not necessarily perfect families, but dependable ones. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yes, very, very valuable points. And as you mentioned about behavior and so on, I understand that a family system is an interconnected and independent unit where each member's behavior and emotions influence the entire family. How do functional supportive family systems influence the well being, social behavior, and the long term outcomes across generations? Chanel, can we start with you?
Okay, so I think Romain would have touched it earlier when we were talking about modeling behavior, right? Um, we are as adults need to model the behavior we want our children to lead from or to learn from, right? If it is that there is, let me throw the example there of so a type of dysfunction. Let's say daddy always shouting and screaming all the time and really, really aggressive. Um, if not contained or whatever, this child could pick up that same type of aggression and stuff and display that in later life because they're just modeling behaviors and stuff that they see. So for me, I would say that children are sponges. Adults, we have to be careful the things that we are doing, the things that we are saying, because when they're not in your presence, sometimes those things manifest itself in different ways, right? So, for instance, you may, as I said, daddy shouting, the next little child ends up at daycare or something like that, shouting at one of their peers or whatever. Is like, where did that come from? And then you recognize that the things that they're seeing in their household manifesting itself in other ways outside of the household too as well. So I would open the floor to say that modeling and us as adults need to be able to model the behaviors. And I know Adrian said we're not trying to be perfect, but let me tell you something. The children nowadays pick up so much different things. We have to be so careful. Romain alluded to that fact earlier. We have to be careful, even how we making sport and doing things and the things the children see in the household. Even as a married couple, you might do something to your husband or your wife, and they recognize that the child is seeing that, and then they're going to experiment in a different forum. So, as I said, I can open the floor to say modeling behavior. Our children see it, and I think that we as parents need to make sure that we model the behavior we want to see.
Agreed. The point I was making is that families are not perfect. Not, I'm not saying we're not trying to be perfect, we're trying to do well. But remember, the family is not this perfect environment. Things will go wrong, and the things that happen within families. That's the reason why there's space for forgiveness, there's space for reconciliation. People sometimes think that, and you may look on the outside of a family situation and you assume that everything there is hunky dory. But in the dynamics of family, there is so much that goes on. I look at my own experience raising three daughters. They're three different personalities. And if you have a child with a particular bent toward a particular challenge, there's so many things that can go on within a family, but the resilience, the importance of being focused on a good outcome. The environment is not perfect, but you take the responsibility to do the things necessary to make the corrections, to give the proper instruction, and so forth. So this is what I'm talking about when I say that it's not necessarily a perfect environment, but one where people are willing to work through the differences, through the challenges, to begin to see the good outcomes for that family.
And I can add to that too. I think that families don't just raise children, as we're saying. They imprint templates of marriage, conflict, faith, whatever the case may be, that children tend to repeat. And I'll actually go about it from a different angle, because not only do children tend to repeat some of those things, but on the other hand, they intentionally resist some of those things. So I might grow up in a situation where I see my parents doing something, and I grew up saying that would never be me. And I decide that I am just strictly focused on never making this my outcome because of what I've seen. So whereas we say that children learn from good and bad examples, we have to understand that the learning from good and bad examples is not meaning that they're following necessarily the bad examples, but it might be a case where there's something that the parent would have done that would have harmed them or impacted them so severely that they've decided that their own situation could never be the same as what they would have grown up and experienced. And we have to be cognizant of that as well, because I think that whereas we look at it from one side of the coin and see that children tend to follow your patterns, there's some children
But
that are
children also make up their mind at a certain stage of what they're going to do. A child can watch you being very giving, being very helpful to people. You're always sharing, you're always thinking, and the child can make up its mind.
exactly.
I see my dad giving away things. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, exactly. That's
So
exactly what I'm saying.
you can
I
you
think
can
the
set
child goes
a,
from both sides. Yeah. Go
you
ahead.
can
Sorry.
set a good example,
Yeah.
and that child can get to a stage where it makes up his mind. I am not doing that.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is because the way we're created with our own, you have your own mind, and you have your own will, and
Freedom of
as a
choice.
point, once
Yeah.
that freedom of choice kicks in.
Yeah.
And so we have to also be cognizant of that. We seek to do the very best that we can. I've seen examples of parents, upstanding citizens, wonderful people, people within the church, and the child is raised within that environment, exposed to all the positive influences of church, Sunday school, everything before them, and that child becomes a vagabond.
Yeah.
I've seen that, lived and seen that. So there's that reality that we
I
must
have as well.
connect with. So we do the best that we can, and and that's what we are expected to do. But recognizing that, and that's again comes back to this whole idea of that perfection that we're seeking. Um, we can do the best, and we need to always give our best, but understanding that there's some things that are out of our control, even within the families, it's a structure, this stuff that's out of our control.
Yeah, the point is taken. But when I think about, as I listen to you, sometimes you're thinking that you're doing the best, and um, it may not have been done in the healthiest of ways. Uh, like for instance, in a family, perhaps growing up in faith and so on, if a child would have seen a parent always in church, always giving that responsibility to their lives to the church, and they're not benefiting from it as a child, then you will see certain reactions. I would never want to be a pastor. I would never want to do this because that person, even though they were doing something good, it
Yeah.
wasn't done in a balanced and a healthy way. So I could see sometimes why some children will make different decisions. But I also see the point where um, it may not be your family that has modeled something good. It may be somebody else you're exposed to that you would have seen, and you would make a decision that, I'm not going to go the path or the treacherous path that my family went down, but I will choose to do something better. Do you agree?
Agree.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
that's all part of I see as Cornelius would have mentioned it is rebellion. Some children just decide that they're going to rebel as well.
It cuts both ways. You can see a pattern of behavior also within a family environment, and a child can determine, you see that? I am not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Mhm.
I think of my own experience. My dad used to smoke and drink and would become at times aggressive. I determined from an early years that I'm not going to do that,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So there's that. You can.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know what would have informed or caused me to get that. I don't want that. I'm not going to do that.
But
So
there's some children that would have grown up in that same exact position and decided that
yes,
they were going to follow in the pattern of their father.
yeah. Thankfully,
Right.
he made some changes
Yeah.
eventually. But
Excellent.
you have to sometimes, based on the influence of what you're seeing, you see a pattern of behavior, and sometimes a child can look at that also and determine, and that's why what Remy was talking about, that freedom of choice that we have to choose good or to choose bad. It's an option that people take, and it's all happens within this environment that we call family. And you know what? It's still family. It is
Yeah.
still
Yes.
family.
Yes.
But now, in terms of, as we're saying, family, are people still seeing family as that the birthing place for the values in society? Because we're seeing that people are choosing not to, whether not to get married, or they're focusing on career and different things. um how is it that should we be approaching the family in this modern time?
Well, you talk about what people are seeing, and I think what we need also to bring into the picture that is, apart from just the immediate community influencing what we do, today there are a lot more influences that people are receiving apart from what was the community. The community now is not just where we live, but the community exists online. And a lot of the influences that come into our children's sphere of influence, a lot of influence that come into their eye line and into their thinking comes from way beyond Barbados, way beyond our immediate community. So we can see a lot of trends and influences developing that have nothing to do with Barbados, nothing to do with what we see in our localized community. And those behaviors also influence how people are socialized.
So in essence,
Those
we go back to the
influences.
same, yeah, true. I mean, so modeling again, right? So the influence of the internet and YouTube and TikTok and those things, and children building, well, their own quote unquote connection, are influenced to do what? Model the behavior that they're seeing on there. Now, you have a parent in a household who is modeling what we consider the correct or the behavior that they want their child to see. But somehow or the other, this influence now from an
Not
external place that has no connection has a
not
greater influence
not
on the
somehow or
child's
the other
behavior.
through the
through
device.
Devices.
through the devices, right? Yes,
The
through
devices,
devices.
the various
Through
devices.
devices, right? Yes, through devices. Now have more say than the parent that living in the household because somehow or the other, like Romy, you talked about this today too. The
Yeah,
chat GPT, the AI tell them when them
yeah.
ask a question, how to do something, and they're gonna believe that and be influenced by that rather than the human being, parent or the person with experience in the household trying to share or give them guidance on something. So, as I said, I agree with Romy when he said about freedom of choice. You can model a behavior as perfect as you want to call it. At the end of the day, the same way God gave us choice if we wanted salvation or not, the same thing with children. They choose if they want to model the behavior that they see in the household, or they choose like, no, I don't want to. You understand? But I would say to us right now that the influence of the internet and all of the different platforms and stuff like that seem now to want to have our children model different behaviors than the ones that we would really want them to display.
And
Yeah.
again, that
Go ahead. Go ahead,
underscores
Adrian.
go back to the whole matter of responsibility of the parent. Responsibility of the parent. What are you allowing them to be exposed to at what age? How much freedom do you give them? And you have to modulate that. And you have to take responsibility for your children. You can't just sit them down in front the device or in front of the television or put the tablet in the hand and leave them because that tablet is going to take care. I see it happening a lot. That the
It
tablet
does.
now becomes the parent,
Mhm.
you know, and so the child is spending more time with the phone, with the tablet, than in your presence, than in engaging with you. You have the parent still has that fundamental responsibility to what the child is exposed to. Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. So parents would say, I don't have the time to deal with that. So then what they do, they end up putting that same device
Friend of
in the children's hand. And we are asking parents, instead of a device, why not spend some time going out? Let's go for a walk. Let's play a game. Let's do something interactive. But the parents gonna look at you and say, "Oh, you got the time, I too tired from work or whatever." And they do what? Give the
You
child
know,
a
what is
device now.
interesting
You
is that
understand? And
the
so
parents
that they
find
could do
time.
their own thing. Yeah, exactly. And then the world now has access to your child. And the thing is, you talk about responsibility, but a lot of parents don't know what their children doing on those tablets and those
That's a
phones
fact.
either. They don't
That's a
know.
fact. And I think you need to parent every aspect of their lives. I right now I was actually giving the example to someone this morning in church. I said, my son has a tablet, but he doesn't have the password for his tablet. And if he wants to use his tablet, he has to come to us to use it. There are limits and there are restrictions on what he is allowed to do as far as the tablet is concerned. He can't watch anything without someone present to see what it is that he's watching. He's aware of that. He's aware that the tablet has limitations. And I think that honestly, I actually feel like some parents should have limitations on their own access to technology, but that might be a broader conversation. So yeah, I do think that there needs to be some form of confinement and parenting when it comes to technology in this day and age, especially.
Right. So who spends the most time? That is what catches the children, right? As I
Yes.
that is what I'm hearing here. That wherever your child spend the most time, that influence will come from there, and the values and the behaviors, and that is why we need to be very intentional as parents and responsible to ensure that we are teaching our generations, our children, which will influence the next generation, what needs to be taught. I think about the scripture in Joshua 6 when the scriptures said to teach them, when they lie down, when they so it talks about you spending time or taking time to
Mm.
teach our children the values, ensuring that they know what they should know so that that can be passed on to their children as well. And we see also in the scripture that when that did not happen, we saw what happened to the people of Israel, right? And so it's definitely important. And so as we're winding down, um, let's just talk about now the healthy side of things. Like what are the ingredients of a healthy family that produces a health? I know we've been talking about a number of things, but just to kind of bring it together, to so what are some healthy ingredients, some things that we can encourage parents to practice so that we can see a better society.
I can start. I would say, sorry,
That's fine.
um,
That's fine.
uh, talking. Let's talk about communication. I know we love and communication. All right. So my thing is that talk to your children, man. Find out exactly what's going on. Be interested in the things that they may be interested in. Ask them how the day is going. If there's a opportunity to where they had to be disciplined, you tell them why exactly what is going on and why you're doing what they're doing and stuff like that. Why you take away the device. So it's talking communication. I realize that sometimes there's not a lot of talking or communication, open communication, because as Romain would have mentioned that back in the day, children were supposed to be seen and not heard, but really and truly, children have a voice too, and
Yes,
I'm thinking that
definitely.
we gotta listen. I know
Hmm.
sometimes as adults we want to be authoritarian. I know, but can we just take a step back to hear what our children have to say? They might open our eyes to some things that we didn't even think about, or show us some things about ourselves that we didn't realize that we were doing. It could be quite a humbling experience too. So my thing is that two ingredients I'm going to put on the table will be love and open communication.
I can add to what you're saying, but I I want to stick with the positive side of things as Angelina was asked or requested, but I can see how this can go into the other side of things, which would be the negative side of things, and at the same time be a point for an even broader conversation. I would say if we are looking back at the two-parent household, many of times there are situations where the two parents are not on the same page, especially surrounding the parenting of the child. So then we end up in a situation whereby, as Chanel said, the issue is communication. Because if I'm telling the child one thing and then their mother's telling them something completely different, and I think this goes back then to what the Word of God defines as being unequally yoked and why it's so important for two people to be equally yoked. If we have two believers in the same household and parenting together, I I believe that it would be a lot easier to send one message or communicate in one way. I see Adrian smiling, so I don't know if he has an opinion on that too, but I think it should be a lot easier for them to communicate to that child in from the same hymn sheet. We're all singing from the same hymn sheet, yeah? But if it is a
Mm.
case where we have conflicting views, um, there's going to be some issues with the communication. So I think that if we go back to the crux of the matter or the basis of it where we actually started, the genesis where we started, then we would see that when we talk about the strength and the positive areas of family and the household, then we have to look back at how God has orchestrated it to be, how God intended a family to be, and how He has built the principle and the morals of family, and He established the family in any day, whether it be the days gone by or the days that are present.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that I must agree with the others about the amount of communication and being of one mind. The two parents and an agreement where you have that kind of arrangement in nuclear family, um, because the children are can be very creative, and
very.
you don't want to have them playing one off against the other. They will do that. They're tactful enough to do that, and that's
Yes.
why there has to be that kind of agreement as to this is the path that we are going to take. This is what we're doing. And you speak with one voice, and somebody has to take the lead. Someone has to take the lead, and then others have to follow. That's the reality, and it's about taking responsibility. I think it's important that the communication is clear that goes to the child, and that we're able then to have instituted the things that you want to have done, and that both parents are in agreement.
All right. Is there anybody else want to add? Just in a few seconds. Okay. Well, okay, go
Just
ahead,
just
You
another
may,
thought too.
yes.
So okay, yeah. That the one thing I want to in terms on this note that there are patterns that we see in families. They're powerful patterns. Some are negative, very powerful, but they're not destiny. They're not the final thing. There's always room for adjustment and room for change if we are willing to engage, if we are willing to even reach out and help one another. I think that we can see the things that even appear negative can be turned around if we are willing to engage. If we don't just want to go our own way and ignore a situation, we can see um, that what may appear to be a negative can be corrected by our engagement with each other across not just our own family, but those persons who are close to us in our neighborhoods and so forth. If we engage with
And
people,
that is
we can
also
have a
the
positive influence.
Sorry, I was saying, and that is
I
also
didn't hear
the
that.
note that I would like to close with from my end as well. I think that we are all parents, and if we are not parents, parents, I think we're all parents, peerents. I just made that up, so I hope it made sense to somebody. But I think we can have, or we have the responsibility, and I like to make the appeal to everyone, because you have the responsibility to parent someone around you. And whether you have children or not, of your own biologically, you have the responsibility to parent someone about around you. So it could be in your community, it could be in your church, but our responsibility is to train up a child in the way he should go, according to, I think it was Ephesians 6:4. But yeah, to train up a child in the way he should go, or to bring them up in the training of the Lord. So I would make the appeal to you, meaning everybody that is within the hearing of my voice or watching this at any point in time. I think that is your responsibility to parent someone.
Yes. Yes. So overall, what we've heard is that, yes, we've established that the family has the main responsibility, but we also need support from the extended family, the community, and so forth. And so I just want to say thank you to each of you once again for your clear and insightful contributions to this topic. And so we've started off the week examining how the family is critical to the health of any society. So thank you once again, Romaine, Chanel, and Adrian. And we will continue along this trend on Tuesday. On the topic is the family, the ultimate fix for social dysfunction. So ensure you tune in then at 7 p.m. as we seek to answer this question. So thanks to everyone for joining us, those who are on YouTube and on Facebook and the other pages. And don't forget to share these valuable discussions with a friend or a family member who may very well need it. So until next time, I am Angelina Cotton. Have a pleasant evening all.
And I want to say a special thank you to you as well, Angelina, before you even close off. I want to say a special thank you to you for being an excellent moderator for this evening's session.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
it. And thank you, Angelina. God bless each one.
We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong, looking out for hurting children all around, and helping the parents carry on. Standing united, we'll overcome. We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing